Now, we know, of course, that violence has continued despite calls by the UN Security Council for President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar to control their forces. Fierce battles have been reported in several parts of the capital today, including an attack on Machar's house that was over the weekend. The violence, of course, though, has persisted, even though representatives of both leaders claim the situation is under control.
And at present, the situation is calm, the situation is normal. Juba town is under full control of the government of the Republic, of the government.
The country has a president, one government, as Michael said, one people. So the law and order is the responsibility of the government all over the places of the country, including where the IO forces are deployed.
Well, let's get the very latest now from Juba. CCTV's Patrick Oyot is on the ground. He joins us on the line with an update on the situation there. Patrick, we know, of course, that it has been a rather tense 5 days in Juba. What is the situation like where you are now?
Yeah, the situation remains more or less the same like what happened yesterday. Fighting is continuing. It would subside a little bit. You would think now this is an end of it. And then after a little bit, you hear again gunshots, fighting continues. It is actually spreading all over Juba town. The airport is closed. No evacuation is happening. UN has also confirmed reports saying that the opposition forces try to take control of the airport, resulting to heavy exchange of gunfire and artillery explosion. UN peacekeepers are also reportedly fighting back soldiers trying to break into the units to extract soldiers who ran there for safety in civilian clothing. Fighting has also escalated to other parts of the country. We understand there is fighting now in Torit, which is the capital of the eastern Equatorial State. That is in the eastern part of the country. And civilians are also running out of the town there in Torit. And we understand President Salva Kiir has also summoned all his commanders for a meeting in the State House. Maybe there might be a press briefing later, and maybe they'll call for a ceasefire. We still do not know what will happen later, but fighting continues, and the situation remains very, very tense. People are stuck in their houses without water or food. You know, in Juba, water is only transported by trucks because the tap water is not in Juba, and these trucks obviously are not moving. People are just stuck in their houses with children, no water, no food, leave alone those who ran to the bushes yesterday. Last night it rained. They were there with children. They are all stuck there, nothing to eat, no movement. They cannot move with these gunshots that are just randomly being shot in any direction. And we do not know who is controlling which part of Juba. That is how the situation is at the moment.
Well, Patrick Oyot, thank you very much for that update. We do urge you, of course, to stay safe. Thank you very much. Let's get more insight now on the situation in South Sudan from Ambassador Jimmy Deng. He is the Deputy Head of Mission at South Sudan's embassy here in Nairobi, and he joins us live in studio. Ambassador, as we heard there from our correspondent, Patrick Oyot, the fighting continues. People are trapped in their homes. And the question that everybody has is, what actually sparked this violence? Who is behind it and why?
Thank you for having me. The current situation is triggered by within the elements of the SPLM-IO who have decided to disregard the peace agreement that we have in place with the armed opposition and the SPLM in opposition, whereby on Thursday they started shooting at the government troops or at the checkpoint at Gudeli, whereby they killed the 5 soldiers. As a result, the 2 leaders sat on Friday to discuss the event. And again, on Friday afternoon, while the 2 leaders were having the discussion regarding the killing of the soldiers, the same element again came and attacked our soldiers outside the fence of the State House. And that triggered the violence into escalation. And as a result, Juba has been under current crisis for the last few days.
Well, Ambassador, as you say that some of this fighting took place while the President and the Vice President themselves were meeting. They've since called for peace, but it seems like their call for peace is being ignored. There is a sense that the 2 leaders have perhaps lost control of their troops.
Not really, because the government is in control of its forces. I don't know about the situation with the IO. However, Dr. Machar has also made the same appeal as our president that we need to cease violence. And we continue to hear from the IO side that there are elements within there are forces that are not obeying the command and the control of their leaders. So I'm not saying that they are not in control, but the government is in control of its forces in Juba.
Well, considering that we know that the airport has been closed, people are trapped within their homes, what exactly is the government going to do in order to bring an end to this violence? And are they going to seek help from regional leaders?
Already I can assure you that CAM has come to Juba. There is still a little bit tension. Tension still exists in Juba. The civilians, the citizens are in their houses. But as we talk, Juba is under control.
There is then, I must just bring this up briefly. Of course, Patrick Oyet's mentioned that some of the violence has moved as far as the eastern equatorial state. So even if Juba might be coming under control, it seems that the violence in itself is continuing to spread.
Yes, we have heard of the news that other parts of the country have also been involved in the current crisis. We heard this morning that in Torit there are also certain elements of the IO groups that have defected from the government side, and they have also started fighting along Torit. But as we speak, it is being contained. The government is aware that these elements will continue to create insecurity within the country, and we are working on containing the situation.
All right, well, let's hope that it is contained sooner rather than later. Thank you very much,
Thank
Ambassador Jimmy Deng, live with us here in our studios in Nairobi. Well, let's now see that, of course, the East African regional body, IGAD itself, is responding to the violence. They're saying that they will hold an emergency meeting here in Nairobi later today. IGAD had previously brokered the peace deal between President Salva Kiir and Vice President Machar. The meeting is part of the African Union's response to the latest violence in South Sudan. Well, now let's bring you the very latest in terms of the African Union's response. CCTV's Jane Kiir is live for us in Kigali, where the African Union Summit is taking place. Jane, of course, this renewed fighting is bound to raise concerns at the summit there. What's the reaction from leaders gathered in Kigali, and what can we expect from this emergency meeting by IGAD?
Well, Lindy, for starters, IGAD will be condemning the violence in South Sudan. What perhaps they see is the continued violation of the cessation of hostilities agreement, plus the failure by the two parties to honor that compromise agreement that they signed last August. Now, what we've been told, Lindy, is that it's the UN that has urged IGAD to actually intervene. So officials will certainly be looking at what kind of options they have, what kind of intervention they will be making. Is it going to be military, as they've done in the past, even though that did not really go well, especially with the Ugandan soldiers, or is it going to be diplomatic, where they will be sending envoys back to Juba to try and talk to the two parties? And what we are hearing from our sources is that former Malian President Alpha Konare, who is the AU special envoy for South Sudan, is actually on his way to Juba. So at this point, he's probably going to be acting as the tool for diplomacy between the AU and Juba. He's most likely going to summon the two parties, President Kiir and Salva, President Kiir and Riek Machar, to the table to try and control, especially to try and to urge them to control their security forces for the sake of peace. Now, at this point, officials here are equally worried, and they're raising some concerns, saying that perhaps, Lindy, this is the time that the African standby force should actually go into operationalization, to be operationalized. And what many here are saying is that clearly the two parties really signed this compromise agreement last August without any commitment. Lindy?
We'll have to leave it there, but thanks very much for that update. Jane Kiir, live for us there in Kigali at the AU Summit.